Core archetype angle, the hidden pain of self-erasure and premature responsibility, the paradox of the child who survived by becoming an adult too soon, only to grow into an adult who no longer knows how to feel safe being a child. This is the psychology of the one who learned to manage chaos before they ever learned to play, the one whose emotional intelligence was born from necessity, not nurture, the one whose maturity was mistaken for strength, but was, in truth, a silent trauma response. 1. The high impact hook and core paradox. You learn to read the room before you learn to read words. You learn to soothe other people before anyone ever soothed you. You learned that being small was dangerous, so you outgrew yourself. You became the calm one, the dependable one, the mature for your age one, and everyone admired you for it, except you, because deep down, you know it wasn't wisdom that made you grow up fast. It was survival. There's a kind of child who carries invisible weight. They become emotional translators for their parents' chaos, anticipating moods, mediating fights, or simply staying quiet so they don't add to the noise. They become the glue that holds a fractured home together, even if no one ever asked them to. And that's the paradox. The very thing that kept you safe as a child is the very thing that's suffocating you as an adult. Your ability to stay composed, to read others before speaking, to anticipate every possible outcome. It once kept you from being hurt. Now, it keeps you from being free, because when you grow up too fast, you learn to be useful before you learn to be loved. You mistake control for safety, performance for identity, and silence for peace. And one day, you look around and realize you built your entire life out of survival instincts. You didn't grow up, you just aged. And beneath all that composure, there's a child still standing in the wreckage, waiting for someone to say, "It's over now, you can rest." But resting feels unsafe, doesn't it? Because when you slow down, all the suppressed memories rise to the surface. The unmet needs, the swallowed cries, the endless vigilance. That's the tragedy of the child who grew up too fast. They became so good at surviving that they forgot how to live. 2. Definition and psychological authority. Psychologists call this phenomenon parentification, when a child takes on roles and emotional responsibilities meant for an adult. There are two main forms. Instrumental parentification, where the child becomes a caretaker, cooking, cleaning, managing siblings. And emotional parentification, where the child becomes a therapist, absorbing the moods and wounds of the parent. In both cases, the child's nervous system learns one core rule: my worth depends on what I can provide. Neurobiologically, this rewires the stress response system. The child's amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, becomes hypersensitive, constantly scanning for threat or disapproval. The prefrontal cortex, which governs emotional regulation, is overactivated, forcing the brain into perpetual executive mode, constantly managing, planning, anticipating. This is known as chronic hypervigilance, a hallmark of trauma. It's not just mental, it's physical. The body learns to stay tense, the breath shallow, the muscles primed for flight or appeasement. You might think of it as the CEO of the family syndrome, a nervous system that never clocks out. Then there's attachment trauma. Children who grew up too fast often develop avoidant or anxious, preoccupied attachment styles. They learn that closeness equals responsibility, that love is earned through usefulness, that vulnerability invites disappointment. So even in adulthood, their relationships are shaped by this early contract. I'll take care of you if it means I don't have to feel my own needs. Philosophically, this is the birth of what Jung might call the false self, a self constructed not from authenticity, but from adaptation, built layer by layer to maintain harmony in environments that offered none. It's a kind of premature enlightenment, the child who sees too much, understands too deeply, and carries empathy as both a gift and a burden. But here's the hidden cost. Every adaptation is a form of self-abandonment. 3. The emotional cost and philosophical weight. The emotional cost of growing up too fast is existential loneliness, not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of never having been known. Because when you grow up as a caretaker, you become invisible by design. You become whoever is needed in the moment, the helper, the listener, the stabilizer. Your identity becomes a mirror reflecting everyone else's needs but showing none of your own. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what happens when your earliest survival depended on not being who you are?" That's the paradox of the prematurely mature child. They are praised for their poise, but punished for their presence. They are loved for their reliability, but not for their reality. So they internalize a haunting belief that peace is something you earn through performance, not something you're inherently worthy of. And this creates what I call the grief of the unlived childhood. It's not the loss of something that happened, it's the loss of something that never did. You might feel it when you see carefree people laughing too loudly, when you can't relax even during happiness, when joy feels foreign, like a language you once knew but forgot. It's a quiet mourning for the self that never got to just be. This grief is complex because it doesn't have a clear object. You can't point to it. You just feel it, an ache beneath every achievement, a hollowness behind every smile. Philosophers like Søren Kierkegaard spoke of despair as the sickness unto death, the suffering of not being able to align the self you show with the self you are. The healing, conclusion, and affirmation. Healing the wound of growing up too fast is not about reclaiming innocence. It's about reclaiming presence. It's about learning to exist without performance, to rest without guilt, to need without shame. This is where inner child work becomes essential. It's not about regression, it's about reconnection, about sitting with that small, exhausted version of you and saying, "I see you. You didn't deserve to carry all that." For the child who grew up too fast, that journey is the act of turning back, not to stay there, but to bring that child home. So if this resonates with you, remember this truth. You are not broken because you grew up too fast. You are tender because you had to be tough too soon. And your healing, your softness, is not regression, it's resurrection. If this message reached a part of you that's been quiet for years, share it, because somewhere out there is another grown child, still holding everything together, still believing they have to. Let them know it's finally safe to put it down. It's finally safe to grow up slowly.